Morning everybody, it's Pam Steele and I'm on blog 37. It's Friday 22nd of May. So it's the end of Mental Health Week for me, and if you want to look at any more details or what's going on, look at mentalhealth.org.uk, and the theme is kindness. Now, I hadn't really got anything planned for today, and it was very strange. I was sorting out my rather untidy bedroom and decided to bring out all my summer clothes and throw out stuff that's hanging around. Anyway, I came across, in my bookcase, something that somebody had sent me, and it was putting all of our eulogies for a dear, dear friend of mine together. So I indulged myself and read all the way through it. And she, I realised, is probably the kindest person I've ever met. She's called Jenny Craddock, and she put on her epitaph. Sadly, she died. This is give you a picture of her. A beautiful woman, and there she is with her dog, Miles, that in fact I've now got a dog very similar looking, and she was a psychiatrist. That's a trained medical doctor, remember, a psychotherapist, because she did more training in psychotherapy, a counsellor and a psychologist, all rolled into one, an amazing person too. And her epitaph, when she sadly died of cancer a few years ago, was, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." She was first of all, she was my therapist, and then she became my supervisor for my clinical work. And then she became a colleague when we were working at Pentonville Prison voluntarily, and it's true, we received, by being kind there, far more than we ever gave. And I think that's the magic of kindness. Jenny was counselling all these young guys who'd lost their way and had committed crimes. And I was, of all things, giving life skills classes, which were mostly hilarious, but I think something got through. So I had the privilege to know her for 15 years before she died of cancer, and that was only a few years after, sadly, her daughter, Emily, who'd been on a Greenpeace expedition in the Amazon, tragically died there. So I was privileged, as I said, to know her for all those years. And I just thought that I'd give you a few snippets of what people said about her. And so Jenny was someone who made life that bit more worth living to whoever she met. She was the most kind and loving human being that I'd ever met. Jenny was someone with unashamed emotions, full of joy, happiness, sadness, anger, action for justice, and of course love. She was brought up a Catholic and half French, and I think that gave her the sort of naughtiness in her, which often brought out the naughtiness in me. She then later shared her religious beliefs with her husband, who was Jewish, and loved both religions. So I'm going to leave you with something rather naughty, and that was, if I can find it, a joke that we laughed about, and I gave on her eulogy. And that was, and I hope this lightens up the mood slightly for the weekend. But the essence, before I finish, is that, be kind. Think of a person who you think is the kindest person you know. Maybe it's you, but think of all of those things that we talked about yesterday about being kind, listening to someone, to do an act of kindness, giving somebody something, maybe doing some voluntary work, all of those different things. and think about those over this long bank holiday weekend. So next week we're going to be looking at chapters 9 and 10 about how to successfully come out of lockdown, maybe, and whatever things that you've thought of doing, whatever pledges or goals that you might have in terms of coming out of lockdown, making sure, or from any of the blogs that we've talked about, making sure that those work. So anyway, this is this slightly silly joke. 3 Italian nuns die and go to heaven. You may have heard it. At the pearly gate, she met St. Peter, and he says, "Sisters, you've led such exemplary lives. The Lord's going to grant you 6 months to go back on earth to wherever you want to go." And so that was great. So the first one comes up and says, "Oh, I want to be Sophie Loren." Poof, she's gone. Second one says, "I want to be Madonna." Poof, she's gone. And the third one says, "I want to be Sarah Pippolini." And St. Peter says, "What? I've never heard of that person." And she said, "Oh, yes, yes." And so the nun takes out of her habit a newspaper and showed St. Peter the headlines. And at this, he starts laughing like crazy. And he hands it back to her and he says, "No, sister." He said, "The paper says the Sahara pipeline was laid by 400 men in 6 months, not Sarah Pippolini." Anyway, there you go. That's it. I know how to ruin a joke. Anyway, have a lovely weekend, and thank you all for listening to my blogs. And if you like it, please share it. Goodbye.